I cannot stop playing Inazuma 11 Victory Road. Usually I'm not one to buy games when they've just come out, because I think paying 70 to 80 bucks for a game is ridiculous. But for once, I decided to buy Victory Road at full price, and I can safely say it is worth every single penny. Maybe it's even worth more than what they're asking for it. And if you think I sound insane right now, listen up, because I am going to blow your mind. Inazuma 11 is a franchise that is very close to my heart. In case you didn't know, Inazuma 11, apart from a video game series, also has an anime adaptation, and I started watching the Dutch dub of said animation when I was just a little kid. I absolutely loved it, but I only started getting into the games when I was a little older. The first one I played was Inazuma 11 Strikers for Wii, which I actually made a video about a couple years ago. I loved this game to death, so later on I also started playing some of Inazuma 11 Go on the 3DS and Firestorm for the regular DS. So you could say I have quite a bit of experience with this franchise, but if you've been paying attention, these games all have something in common. They're all old as f***. The last Inazuma 11 game that came out was Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy for the 3DS in 2013, and that only released in Japan. So you can probably imagine that once Victory Road hit the beta phase, I was not that impressed actually. Don't get me wrong, I thought it looked stunning, but it just didn't feel quite right. When I first saw it, I just thought the gameplay looked really slow, so I never really paid any mind to it, and I didn't expect to be wowed by the final game once it released. It wasn't until recently when I started watching the Aries and Orion seasons of the anime that I actually got on a bit of an Inazuma 11 kick again and decided to look into the game a bit further. And that is the moment I realized I needed to have this game. Now, you might be wondering, how does your opinion on the game make a full 180 out of nowhere? Well, that all has to do with Victory Road's Chronicle Mode. Because in Chronicle Mode, you are playing through every single match from the franchise's history, and you get to build your own custom team with all the players you encounter in those matches. Meaning, you get to play as more than 5,000 characters. You can play as all the main characters, all the side characters, and even some of the glub shittos like those Power Ranger guys you only encounter in Firestorm or Blizzard. And that's exactly what I adore about this game mode. The sole focus on building your own custom team. And that might sound like stating the obvious, but hear me out. In the DS and 3DS games, when playing through the story mode, you always had to put certain characters on the pitch when playing story matches. This meant that even though the games have a huge amount of characters, it limits your freedom in creating whatever team you'd like. And that is why I loved Inazuma 11 Strikers so much, because it gave you absolute freedom in what kind of team you wanted to build. The only limitation in that game, however, was that the character roster is relatively small. Victory Road, however, perfectly combines the best thing about both styles of game. Because by making the Chronicle Mode separate from the story mode, you can now create a team with all the players you could possibly want without any sort of restrictions. But I haven't even mentioned one of the coolest things yet, because Chronicle Mode also introduces a brand new character. Holy shit, it's me! You can create your own custom avatar now, which you can also use in the Chronicle Mode, and that's awesome. I based mine on Axel Blaze myself and my YouTube channel, and I must say I think it turned out pretty cool. With the abundance of characters in the game, including yours truly, obviously also come a lot of different special moves, and seeing them in this game looking absolutely awesome just feels so good as a long-term fan of this franchise. But the thing I am most curious about are the special moves that will be introduced once the Aries and Orion DLC hit the game. Because believe it or not, this game still isn't fully finished, even though it's fucking huge already. A lot of the moves that are in the game now basically use the same animations as in older games, but those new moves are going to have completely new animations, so I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with that. Speaking of the animations, let's talk gameplay, because that was initially the thing that kept me from buying this game. So what do I think about it now? Do you even need to ask? I've got over 50 hours into this game already, and that definitely wouldn't happen if I thought the gameplay loop was insufferable. I've really gotten back from thinking the gameplay is slow. I just had to get used to the mini-battle system and how the goalkeeping works in terms of points. but now that I have, I am really enjoying myself with these matches, because a bunch of new strategic factors are introduced with how you spend your tension on special moves, chaining shots together, and using hyper moves and tactics to outsmart your opponent. The gameplay is surprisingly deep, but it's not just the mechanics that make this such a good game mode, because holy shit, the music! Inazuma 11 obviously already has an amazing soundtrack, and hearing that in this game again is literally music to my ears. But now, they've actually made the music dynamic. So for example, if you enter a mini battle, only the string instruments keep playing. But once you finish the battle, the rest of the orchestra comes back in, and God, it's just so good! And here's one more small thing that I've just been begging for since I've been playing Inazuma 11 Strikers. Because one of my main gripes with that game was that the English voice acting for a lot of the characters just wasn't doing it for me at all. So I always thought it was a shame I couldn't just select the Japanese audio. Victory Road, however, finally made it so that you can have English screen text and Japanese audio. And that is just so much better, because Japanese is a much more screamable language than English, so it just fits a game like this so much better. I do have some issues with the gameplay, but those only really start surfacing once you're playing online. Don't get me wrong, I really like playing online matches because it actually has a bit of difficulty to it compared to the CPUs you face off against in Chronicle Mode, but the balancing is a little questionable sometimes. When you're playing ranked, your player levels are capped at level 50, which I think is a good thing because it helps balancing out the teams. However, there are way more factors that actually impact how good a player is. First of all, character rarity plays a huge role in how strong the players are. For example, a level 50 legendary player will be a million times better than a level 50 common player. Then there's also a bunch of different types of equipment you can select to improve your player's stats. And then finally, players all have different passives that improve the overall stats of your team. I personally think that especially the passives are really convoluted, because you have to take so many factors into account when you're building your team, which means you might select other players over ones you actually like because they have better passives, and that is something you do see when you're playing online. Very many people are using the exact same characters because they're just stronger than others. That to me kind of goes against the idea of the Chronicle Mode, because the most beautiful thing about it is that you can select so many different characters, but you are going to limit yourself to specific ones because they're just stronger than others. And I also think it just messes with the balancing of the matches, because instead of the best player winning, now the player with the best team just usually comes out on top. And that kind of goes against the principles of a ranking system. And just the matchmaking in general is a little weird, because I constantly have to face off against guys that are multiple ranks above me. I personally think it would be nicer if you could just like turn off the passives and the equipment, because then the matchups would actually be a lot more fair and the best player would come out on top. But I'm not 100% sure that would really fix the problem, so be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. Then of course there's other modes like the Town Builder, which I personally couldn't care less about. There's also BB Stadium, where you can select a team from the franchise and play against CPUs or online, which I think is a very nice addition for multiplayer. And then of course there's the story mode. I could talk about this for a while, but I don't think I have many original opinions on it. I haven't fully finished it yet, but what I have played from it, I've absolutely loved. It just has an amazing RPG-like feel. I think Unmei is a fantastic protagonist. And yeah, overall it's just a very solid Inazuma 11 story. My only gripe with it would be the rock, paper, scissors mechanic that is forced upon you from time to time. I think it's a bit stupid, and quite frankly really boring. But yeah, you know, other than that, I'm really enjoying myself with it. I do run into a bit of a problem sometimes though, because I always say to myself when I boot up the game, okay, you can play 1 or 2 matches of Chronicle Mode and then you can start playing the story mode again. But then I end up playing Chronicle Mode for a few hours and I just don't get anywhere. In summary though, Victory Road is basically everything I could have wanted from a new Inazuma 11 game as a fan. This whole game just feels like an insane passion project from the developers, and I'm honestly astounded by what they've come up with. So yeah, that $70 is a bargain. But I'm very curious to your opinion too. Like, what do you think of the different modes? Who's your favorite character? Or are you still contemplating on whether to get the game or not? I'd certainly recommend it, but be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, you should also definitely check out my review of Inazuma 11 Strikers on the Wii.